of the year 2020. And my name is Ron Gacious, and I am the chair of the City of Lawrence Affordable Housing Advisory Board, and I'd like to call our meeting to order this morning. First order of business, Diane, do we have any updated instructions that you should cover regarding our public hearing, our public process today?
Actually, Ron, this is Dani. Diane is not here today. She may be joining us later, but I actually have the updated process to share with everybody. So
very good.
This is Danelle Walters from the city, and I'm just going to read to you the new procedure guidelines. We've had some updates as to how this was being done before. So this meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and public access cable channel 25. During the meeting, when you are not participating, please mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon found on the lower left-hand side of the Zoom menu next to the video icon. When you are muted, a red line will appear over the icon. Muting your microphone during the meeting will make it easier for everyone to hear. You'll just have to remember to unmute if and when you want to speak. In some cases, the meeting host may mute or unmute people as needed to minimize distractions during the meeting. Please remember to state your name every time you speak for the benefit of those listening remotely. You can turn your video camera on or off by clicking on the video icon in the menu. For purposes of the public meeting, when you are participating in the meeting, please keep your video on. When you are not participating in the meeting, it is okay to turn your video off. You'll still be able to listen to the meeting when your video is off. You'll just have to remember to turn your video back on when you are participating. Turning your video off when you are not participating will help make sure that the active meeting participants can be seen on the screen. In some cases, the host may turn someone's video off if they are not actively participating to avoid distraction during the meeting. You can always turn your video back on during the meeting. If you are participating by phone, you can click *6 to unmute your phone. For those using Zoom, somewhere on your screen you will see a choice to toggle between speaker and gallery view. Speaker view shows the active speaker. Gallery view tiles all of the meeting participants. Board members and city staff members, you must state your name and title each time you speak. All motions will need to be stated clearly. After a motion is made and seconded, the chair will call on board members individually to provide their vote. Mr. Chair, you will then need to announce whether the motion carried and the count of the vote. For public comment on individual agenda items, this is the procedure. The chair will open the item for public comment. Participants will raise their hand virtually or physically, and let's see. The host will call on those individuals in the order they appear on the host screen. The host will confirm that everyone is present virtually that has been allowed to provide comment, and then the chair will ask if there's anyone present in the commission room who wishes to comment on the item. We will then have them comment here. And I think that is it. So if there's any questions, please let me know. This is the first run through with the new meeting procedures for staff too. So if we missed something, I apologize.
Patrick Kelly's trying to get in.
Thank you, Dani.
Yes.
Let's move then to see if we have any general public comment from any member of the public. Dani, do you know if, do we have anyone present at City Hall?
There is no one present here.
There are some names on our Zoom
Mr. Chair.
Board that I'm not familiar with. Do we have anyone?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Chair. This is Brad Carr, the Community Development Analyst.
Yes, Brad.
You'll need to take roll, and so that we determine that we have a quorum for the meeting.
Thank you very much, Brad. I'll take roll alphabetically, beginning with Cole Brown.
Here.
Please indicate that you're here. Thank you, Cole. Rebecca Buford.
Present.
Christina Gentry.
Here.
Edith Guffey.
Here.
Thomas Howe.
Present.
Patrick Kelly.
Here.
Paul Newsom.
Here.
Dana Ortiz.
Here.
Shannon Oury,
Here.
Monty Soka,
Here.
Sarah Waters. I believe Sarah contacted us and said she would be late, had a conflict. And Erica Zimmerman.
Here.
And I am Ron Gacious, and I'm present as well. Thank you. So Sarah is the only one.
Casey's
present, right?
here.
I'll come back and ask, do we have anyone who wishes to make public comment?
Casey,
Yes, sir.
Casey just logged in.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Patrick Wilbur. I live at 521 Durham Court here in Lawrence. And I was speaking today about the construction of the board itself. And I apologize because this is something I probably should have brought up 2 or 3 years ago when the City Commission and the city staff was working on it. Right now, I believe you have 13 positions on the board, and I think 9 of those are fairly narrow in scope. We have 2 city at-large employees, 2 city at-large appointees, 1 county appointee, and a resident of subsidized housing or former resident of subsidized housing. So my concern is this: you and the Planning Commission, I think, are obviously 2 of the most powerful and influential boards in the city, and the perception could become that perhaps this board is a little too cliquish and not representative enough. So with the amount of funds that have come in, especially since the Community Development Advisory Committee was dissolved, my ask is that there be a discussion about perhaps either reassigning a few of the positions on the board or adding some, preferably people who are at-large taxpayers or people who are present or former residents of subsidized housing. So that's what I'll throw out there. And I'd love to hear you guys discuss that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Just a moment. I'm taking a couple of notes.
This is Dani Walters. Since that was not a formal agenda item, if the committee would like to, or if the board would like to direct staff to bring that back as an agenda item, we can have that that open discussion about that.
Well, Dani, if you'll remind me, we'll pose that question to the full board when we get to other business.
Okay.
At the end of our agenda, and we're starting to talk about agenda items for the next meeting.
Okay. I will remind you.
And let me make a note on my agenda when we get there to make sure we, Patrick, if you will, I mean, you may not want to stay on for this full meeting to find out the answer to that question, but we will contact you and let you know for certain, and let you know if we schedule that up for discussion by the full advisory board or choose not to. You want to give me your phone number real quick?
Sure. It's 785-727-0506.
727-0506.
Correct.
Well, you're absolutely free and encouraged. We don't get enough visitors to attend all of our session today. But if you need to leave for any reason or choose to, I or staff will get back with you and let you know what we've decided. Okay?
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Do we have anyone else to make a public comment at this time?
Mr. Chair, this is Brad Carr, Community Development Analyst. We do have one other public comment that has his hand raised right now. That's Stephen Ozark.
Very good. I don't see Stephen's hand. So, Stephen, if you could please introduce yourself and make your comment.
Yes, hi, my name is Steve Ozark. I'm a Lawrence citizen and speaking as just a citizen of Lawrence today. And I'd ask each of the board members to consider carefully why it is during this pandemic we were unable to rapid rehouse people when we had the political will, the community will, and great amount of funding. there was no shortage of money. Before the CARES money came in, I know the city and the county were offering $50,000 each to start. And as I understand from the workers looking for that housing, they were not able to use those amounts of money to even seek further amounts of money. So I would venture a hypothesis that the reason is because we lack that permanent affordable housing stock. We tend to lean on the landlords to solve a problem that our government gave up on back in 1984 and on, where they kind of abandoned the idea of making housing affordable for those who live below the poverty line. And to expect landlords to solve this just isn't realistic. I don't think it's fair to landlords, honestly. It's not their job to solve that and make that their charge to care for people as we are here to do. So I'm not vilifying anyone in any way, but I ask you to really consider, we had no roadblocks whatsoever to rapid rehousing, the thing you guys worked so hard on. We lacked units, and we're going to continue to lack units unless this body stands strong to spend the lion's share of your budget on that permanent stock, because we see, again, ask you to really consider what I'm asking for and any input on this issue of why we couldn't rapid rehouse when we had so much money, millions of dollars, and because we didn't have the units. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Stephen. Brad, do we have any other folks that have identified themselves as wanting to make public comments?
I see some other individuals have joined. If they were wanting to make public comment, if they could just signal by raising your hand, and I'll look through and see if anybody is. I don't see anybody else, Mr. Chair, that's wanting to make general public comment. We might, after each item, ask again if there's somebody that would like to speak to that item.
Yes, we absolutely will do that. Thank you, Brad. And if I fail to do that, don't hesitate to interrupt and remind us that is something we'd like to do with each
Aaron?
agenda item. Yes?
I've noticed here in the Lawrence, Kansas, that it was a really good idea that Lawrence really stepped up and put tents out there out in North Lawrence by Woody Park for the homeless people. It gives them a place to sleep during the cold winter weather, and they have a place where heated. And one of the things I've noticed was they're building 20 cottages for the homeless people, or for anybody that needs a place to stay, and it's gonna be out by Burt Nash in the hospital. And I think that's a smart idea because they need a place to stay and a roof over their heads. And I think that's a good thing to go forward.
Thank you, Cole. I agree with you, and I'm sure that city commissioners would be delighted to hear your positive comments in support of those actions.
Thank you.
Next next item on our agenda is to approve minutes of the October 12th, 2020 meeting. Chair would entertain a motion on the minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes as submitted. Thomas
Thank you,
Howell,
Thomas.
Large Board of Realtors.
Do we have a second?
Aye.
That was Cole. Yes, Cole, thank you for the second. We'll do a roll call vote for approval of the minutes. And Cole, you get to go first. Cole Brown.
I approve it.
Thank you. Rebecca Buford.
Approve.
Christina Gentry.
I approve.
Edith Guffey.
I approve.
Thomas Howe.
Yes.
Patrick Kelly.
Yes.
Paul Newsom.
Yes.
Dana Ortiz.
Approve.
Shannon Oury.
Yes.
Monty Soka.
Yes.
Erica Zimmerman,
Approve.
and I believe Sarah is still absent. Is that correct? And Ron Gacious, AHAB chair, also votes yes, and the minutes are approved by a vote of 12-0 with 1 abstention. Next item on our agenda is to receive the monthly financial report.
Actually,
Good morning. Oh, go ahead, Dani.
oh, that's okay. Dani Walters, we did schedule the public hearing to start at 11:15 for CDBG and home. But I think that, Danielle, if your item isn't very long, we can do that item and then move on to the public hearing if that's okay with everybody.
This is Danielle Bushcutter, Budget and Strategic Initiatives Administrator. I can go through my item very quickly. I am not able to share my screen, but to be brief, there are 2 notable changes that I want to highlight for you all. First is on the revenue side. We've gotten another month of revenue in, and it was a positive month, so about $82,000 in sales tax revenue, which is higher than what we have been experiencing previously. So the good news is that gets us more in line with what our budget was initially. But again, as we've experienced these last several months, there's been quite a bit of an ebb and flow month to month in those figures. So this is a positive month, so I wanted to highlight that for you all. And then on the expense side, you will see a large increase. We were able to get the Bethel Estates agreement in front of the City Commission and get those funds encumbered. So that jump that you are seeing on the expenditure side is related to that particular agreement. And finally, I will note that you will now see the expenditures are exceeding our revenues, but that is predominantly because we are spending 2019 fund balance, which is not showing up in the report, because many of these projects that the dollars have walked out the door are related to projects that were actually approved in 2019. So I just wanted to make that note. If you do go in there and you look at that report, you will see that, and that's because the report is cash basis, and we have those funds in our fund balance to cover those expenses. So those were the 3 points I wanted to highlight for you all. I would be happy to answer any questions. If not, we can jump into that public hearing.
Ron Gacious, AHAB chair. Are there any board members with questions for Danielle? Seeing none, let's continue to we'll pass over the quick update on the Affordable Housing Administrator at this time and move directly into item number 3, public hearing on the City of Lawrence 2019 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Dani Walters with the Community Development Division. And before I hand it over to Brad Carr to run the public hearing, I just kind of wanted to give you a quick introduction. We are required, because we are a CDBG and home entitlement community, to hold 2 public hearings each year. The first public hearing is in the spring, and it talks about the activities that we are going to undertake. And then this one in the fall looks at the activities that we did. So that's what this particular item is for. The CAPER document was attached to your agenda item, and that's just kind of our year-end. I hesitate to call it a wrap-up because it's way longer than what a normal wrap-up would be, but it looks at the projects we did and gives some analysis. And we also have this opportunity for people to give input on the program years moving forward that we are now in the planning process for. So I'm not sure if Brad was going to cover this or not, but we've been doing a lot of public engagement over the month of October just to kind of reassess the process for allocating these funds. Not the home funds, so your role will not change in administration of the home funds, but we're kind of really looking at the CDBG piece. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Brad, and he can do his thing.
Thanks, Dani. Once again, this is Brad Carr. I'm the Community Development Analyst with Planning and Development Services for the city. And as Dani said, we are here today to conduct a public hearing on our 2019 grant year consolidated annual performance and evaluation report. And we'll just shorten that down to the acronyms CAPER. Makes it a lot easier as we're discussing that. And as Dani said, this hearing has a couple of intended purposes. And the first is to discuss our past performance on how the city implemented our programs and activities for the 2019 grant year. It's also a forum to suggest future, as Dani said, future activities for both CDBG and Home for our upcoming year that we are planning for right now. That would begin August 1st, 2021 would be our next grant year to begin. And that would run to July 31st of 2022. Staff is also here during this public hearing to answer any questions that the public or the board has about the CDBG and Home programs, and just provide some general information on how those processes work each year. And then the main reason we're here is an opportunity for Lawrence citizens to give us public input on how what needs they're seeing in the community right now in regards to low and moderate income individuals, housing and community development needs, or just any other general needs that they feel that we can use these funds to help address in the future. And so we're really looking for that public input part to get some feedback on how we did with last year's funds, but also what we can do better in the future and what kind of needs people are seeing in the community. And so while you're the board here today, you don't have any actionable items to receive or approve this report, staff really wants to thank you for allowing us to offer this chance for the public in a public forum such as this meeting to give us this input that we're asking for. And we'd really like to see, what the citizens of Lawrence, suggestions they have for uses of these funds in the future in our community. And so with that, we'd really like to open it up to any community members that have joined us, if they would like to provide some public comment on this. After we've gone through the community members, then we'll can answer any questions that the board has.
Very good, Grant. Very good, Brad. Ron Gacious, AHAB Chair. Again, do we have members of the public that would like to comment on the CAPER report?
Mr. Chair, I don't see anybody indicating that they have any public comment.
Mr. Chair, this is Dani Walters. There is nobody in the commission chambers for public comment either.
Okay, very good.
Now I see one. Looks like Mr. Ozark would like to comment on this.
Very good.
Very briefly, this is the poll that was put out.
Excuse me, Stephen, if you could just introduce yourself again. I'm
certainly
sorry. We're gonna.
No,
I don't do a very good job with all of these online policies, so I'm going to try and impose them on myself. So please introduce yourself again.
Sure. My apologies. Steve Ozark, citizen. This is the poll that I received by email, I believe, right? To grade what our priorities are.
This is Brad Carr, Community Development Analyst. No, this is a separate report that we're required to prepare every year for HUD. And so that's this report, what we call the CAPER, which is summarizes how we spent funds in the 2019 grant year. The poll that we put out for community interest and community development needs are for the next cycle of grant funding, which would begin August 1st of 2021. But we're doing the collection phase of input right now so that we can kind of redesign or reflow how that program works in allocating those. And those are specifically for the CDBG funds.
Thank you. And to that, I just wanted to mention, I didn't see a category for affordable housing on those areas of metrics that were listed. Is that correct?
This is Brad Carr, Community Development Analyst. That is correct. The home funds are dedicated specifically for affordable housing. And this board is the recommending body to the City Commission for those funds. What we put out, the poll inputs, were for specifically the CDBG funds, which don't have that affordable housing requirement. They're more for community development and neighborhood needs. We can do some housing activities in those, and that's helping existing homeowners with emergency repairs so they can stay in their homes. And then we also offer some other housing tie-ins as far as rent and utility assistance to keep people from being evicted. So those polls were specifically designed for those CDBG funds, since this board is the recommending body on those home affordable unit funds.
Well, my apologies for my ignorance on the protocol. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that in order for this body to do its job, as I see it, to develop permanent affordable housing, we need other sources to do the all-important vouchers that are needed. I can remember coming before this body, a program that was set up quickly, and then there was no funding within the program for vouchers, and so AHAB was called on to provide vouchers. The aha moment for us is to expand the needs for affordable housing and for the housing vouchers outside of this budget body for the trust fund, because otherwise that slush fund's just going to disappear on us. So I don't know if that's possible in the HUD funding to fund vouchers or not, but whatever ways we need to do that, that's a major priority, and I understand that.
This is Dani Walters. I can speak to that. The Housing Authority has a tenant-based rental assistance program that has been funded out of the home grant for, probably since the beginning, is my assumption. So since the 90s. So there is also an investment made for those vouchers through the home program.
Well, then increase it. It seems like my friends that are doing the hard work that I keep town crying about are always short on the voucher funding, and then it comes to this body to fund that, and that just extricates that much needed money for the permanent results that we need. I mean, someone correct me, but isn't it single digits of how much the city and the county give to the social needs outside of CDBG for these important needs for our citizens that are suffering to survive? I'm just calling out a change that we find other sources for the vouchers. I know they're essential. I know every housing program we do pretty much uses vouchers, I've been informed, but CDBG money and other sources of money got to be identified, or this group's going to be told in 10 years, gosh, we didn't really build that many houses with that money, and I don't know that our community will continue to vote for that tax increase without the results we need.
This is Ron Gacious, AHAB Chair. Steve, I want to say that I fully agree with the comment that you just made, and don't know if you had seen the action that we'd taken last month or the month before. I think we queued it up 2 months ago and finalized it last month when we issued the notice of funding availability. We've committed ourselves, we've given a floor to the percentage of AHAB funds that will be used for permanent affordable housing. I believe that was 70%, is that correct? And we said that we would fund up to, not a requirement, but up to 30% for any other kind of service that might, or other requests that might come to AHAB. That does not preclude us from using all of our funds for permanent affordable housing, but we have at least put in a floor of a percentage, which was for the NOFA just released in October, 70%.
That's terrific. I didn't attend that meeting or hear that news, but you guys need the support of the community and our city and our county to fund the vouchers that are so critical. I mean, it's not an either or; it has to be both and we need simply more funding and mechanisms to fund the other areas so that you all can do your job. So that's great news, Ron. Thank you. I've taken up enough time. My apologies.
Hey, Ron.
Thank you very much. Do we have other members of the public who would like to make a comment?
Ron?
Yes.
When I look around Lawrence, when I saw like 2 houses being remodeled and being built and being up for sale, I feel like that's a good thing that they're having done for the community and for people that want to get into something and buy it. I think that was a good thing I've noticed, because it gives people a place to live. And when I saw 2 other townhouses for sale in my neighborhood, I said to myself, that's a very good deal for people that need a place to live and not just sleeping on the streets or underneath a roof underneath a business. So I think that's a good deal to look into.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Cole. Rebecca Buford, I saw your hand up.
This is Rebecca with Tenants to Homeowners. Just as part of kind of education and speaking to Steve Ozark's comments, and I agree. I mean, the big issue is we need more funding to possibly meet the demand across the whole spectrum of housing, whether it's vouchers or building units. And I think we try to balance that with AHAB money as well as home money. So as well as voucher assistance, home money has been the main way we have subsidized the 87 homes in trust that continue to serve 87 families and will always be permanently affordable. So again, that is not a small number, and it's a number we need to grow for sure by many units. But I will say those home funds and part of the allocation each year goes to building a bricks and mortar building of new construction units that are then permanently affordable. So that is part of that. Home money is doing that bricks and mortar work as well as vouchers. So in some ways I think we're looking at both pieces in both pots of money, and that's okay with me. We need more, but I don't want to pretend like home money isn't a part of the solution of bricks and mortar construction.
Thank you, Rebecca. Brad, I want to come back and ask, do we have any other members of the public that are online with us today, this morning, that would like to make a comment?
I thought I saw maybe somebody indicate, Casey McLennan, I see your video is on. Were you wanting to make a comment on this item?
No, not specifically, but I will say that I'm working on a project with the university, with the architectural department, focused on affordable housing. I'm a landlord in town, and I've got a small company that's looking at doing a development for affordable housing. We're trying to figure out how to best utilize the resources that exist to maximize the benefit to the public. That's why I'm here. I guess I would just clear that up. The university has taken and given us some mock-ups and drawings and some interesting stuff to consider. We're looking for potentially a veterans first type of project, and certainly with the units that I currently have, I would consider them almost all affordable housing, and so I'm very familiar with the need that's out there, and I think there's a great opportunity. So really, I'm just trying to listen today and learn kind of how the process could work for us to maybe move forward with a project that I've got in mind, that I've got on the books. So I'll say that.
Thank you very much, Casey. Ron Gacious, AHAB Chair. Casey, I would be, let's see, how do I start this? Those of us that are on this Zoom call are, for the most part, the people that are focused on addressing the community's affordable housing issues. We have some active participants in the community that aren't on this particular call, but if you look at the staff and the board members that are represented and a handful of the other public participants, this is kind of the team. And I'd be very interested in your perspective as a developer, not necessarily at this moment because we're conducting a hearing on this report. But I'd be very interested in your perspective as a developer on ways that we could make more transparent and more easily understood how to wander through all of the different programs that the city is administering or has available that could help a developer, either for-profit or not-for-profit developer, put together a project. We didn't organize the city around this task, but the city is charged now with addressing it, and it would be great if we could reorganize or realign our functions to make it as seamless and as effortless as possible for folks who want to help expand our affordable housing stock, could receive the input, the resources, the leverage they need to move forward, irrespective of whether they're for-profit or not for-profit. So any thoughts you would have you would like to submit to the advisory board at a future time would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Ron. I think that's probably the next step. But just again, Casey McLennan here, just listening today is my
very good. Thank you, Casey.
Game plan.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to make a comment on this report, provide input?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I was on mute. My apologies. Yeah, Ron, thank you for the input on that. And that is, I think, the logical next step. So thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Casey. Seeing none, I'd ask for comments or questions from advisory board members.
Hi, Christina Gentry here, citizen at large or member of the board who has received or had previously received housing assistance. I had a really great opportunity to engage with some folks in the community, and I appreciate Brad Carr in talking about taking inventory and community input. I think that's so important. I'm so happy that we're taking intentional steps to make sure that that happens. But I think my input here is, what is the community saying, and what have they said, and what have I listened into and to participate in? And then also pass that information here to this board. So LFK housing is what it's called, and what they're calling themselves. These are citizens. They're involved in different organizations, just independent students, people who are trying to survive this COVID and not get evicted. And then also worrying about other groups of people who are maybe not able to pay their rents, and how we can make housing more affordable. So I just wanted to share a couple of things that the group has said and shared in that space, because it also makes sense to what we're talking about today. One of the things these people were looking into participating or wanting to have us do is to make city allocate for to the AHAB funds for pro-housing groups, rather than a tax handout to developers who have no interest in housing security. So I just heard someone who's a developer who does have housing security as a priority, but that's also not often the case in Douglas County, in Lawrence. A couple of their other things I'll just briefly say, because there's a list, but from my input, and what I can do here is share out their words in the comments. They wanted to have housing application barriers like felonies or rental history or citizenship status be taken away or looked at in a way that makes housing more accessible. They wanted to talk about working on a buy-in for all landlords in Lawrence to accept COVID relief funds, because I think there's been issues with people landlords not receiving COVID funds or not accepting them, rather. So that's something which we can talk about. That may not be our scope, but I just wanted to share a couple of things they said, because there's great interest to look into nonprofits, grassroots organizations, and co-ops to buy property and create new model of housing. I think it's a great opportunity. We just heard someone speak earlier about, what is our capacity as a voting board, and us becoming maybe a little bit quotery, or something that we don't want to become cliquish. And I know there's a couple of people here who have invested interest in community organizations that makes sense to have them part of a board. but I really strongly believe in the citizenship or citizens' input. And I just wanted to share a couple of those notes out here because it made sense to add those information, add those inputs here in this space now.
Thank you, Christina.
This is Dani Walters. Christina, we are taking written public comment as well. So if you had something you wanted to submit, we could definitely put that with the public comment packet.
Sure, thank you.
Other questions or comments from Affordable Housing Board members? Yes,
This is Shannon Nowry with the Housing Authority. I just want to follow up on Rebecca Buford's comments that the home funds have been used by the Housing Authority to provide tenant-based rental assistance vouchers for, let's just say, more than 20, 25 years, something like that. Those amounts go up and down depending on sort of what our HUD funding looks like. And we have some really good years and we have some really bad years. And the funding that the Housing Authority has asked from the AHAB to be funded out of the trust are really vouchers that were created back in 2015-16. They're called New Horizon vouchers. They house only families out of the shelter because we were requested to create that program by Stuart Bowley and Craig Weinog because there were people living at the shelter for extended periods of time, like more than 450 days, because of how slowly the voucher lists were going. So those are the two sort of different types of vouchers that we run that have been funded from the city. And as I say, one is from home funds and the other comes from recommendations of this body. And so just, so everybody is aware of where those come from. I do think one of the things that as a body we should take into account going forward is all sources of funds. For those of us that this is our work and we're going to come to AHAB and ask for grants, and we're going to come to home funds or CDBG funds or wherever we're going to go and ask for funds, I do think we should be accountable to showing this body and the city commission where all of our funds come from and what exactly the total ask we're making.
Thank you, Shannon.
Mr. Chair, this is Patrick Kelly. I have a couple questions for Shannon real quick, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
So Shannon, we heard from the public today that I think I heard that there's not been a dime dedicated from county or city government to housing vouchers. Maybe I misunderstood that, but it sounds like you're telling us something different there.
Yes, both the city and county fund the New Horizon vouchers. That is those are the sole funding sources for those vouchers.
And if you had access to more funds, do you feel like you could, if you had access to more vouchers, is the problem with the place to house could you use those vouchers as soon as you got more funding?
We have no shortage of applicants. There might be a shortage of places to locate to rent. That really depends on the market and what happens out there. But and what we saw in 2018 was a very slow lease up. People were having more trouble finding locations to rent. We've had the fair market rents go up significantly since then, and so that's helped a little bit, but and I can't really say we can use X number and then we'd run into that problem because you just really never know what is going to be available out there. But there could come a point in time where we have more vouchers than people can find places to lease.
Thank you.
Ron Gacious, AHAB Chair. Patrick, did you have any other questions? Just
Ron,
No.
it's Monty Sokup. I've got a question, and maybe it's more of a clarification. I've been on the board almost, I guess, 2 years, and where the funding comes from and where it goes, because I don't work in that sector, is a mystery to me. So would it be possible to have some kind of chart that shows here are the sources and here's where they go or how they're used somehow, that would help clarify? Or would anybody else find that useful?
Ron Gacious, AHAB Chair. Monty, I absolutely would. I'm a very visual learner. It would be interesting to see a series of pie charts. And, one pie chart might be where the money comes from, and the other pie chart might be where the money goes. And we could do pie charts that represented the totality of all community funding, and a pie chart that represented housing trust fund dollars only, or home funds only, or CDBG funds only, to get kind of a better view of that. But I concur with you. Not being actively day-to-day engaged in the activity, it is sometimes very confusing to understand where the resources are flowing from and how they're utilized. And I think that really speaks to the same question that I addressed with Casey earlier. I think it's probably pretty difficult for a developer really of any size to break through all of think of how much paper we look at on this board over the course of 12 monthly meetings. And if somebody asked me to put my hands quickly on a summary, best I would be able to do is to pull up our annual report and hope that the level of detail they needed was in there. Other questions or comments from advisory board members? Shannon, did you just go to your mute? Have anything? No. No, okay. I do have a question for staff. I'm looking at page 21 of the 86-page support document for today's meeting. And this is the page that has a chart identifying minority business enterprises and women business enterprises, indicate the number and dollar value of contracts for home projects completed during the reporting period. And I note with some level of disappointment, quite a bit of disappointment actually, that minority and women-owned enterprises seem to be striking out completely in participating in use of home funds. Am I interpreting this chart correctly? And if that's the case, is there any understanding staff can provide us on do we simply not have minority and women-owned enterprises, led enterprises that are available in our community to make use of these funds? Or is there something that we as a community could or should or could be doing to encourage more participation by minority and women-led enterprises in the utilization of home dollars?
This is Brad Carr, Community Development Analyst. In the 2019 year for home funding, what was funded were the Housing Authority for the tenant-based rental assistance. And so there's no construction contracts associated with those that would be reported under that chart. And then also was Tenants to Homeowners, and they have their own in-house construction company, and so they don't hire out any general contractor that would be required to report those numbers. And then also Habitat for Humanity, once again, has their own general contractor. And since they do those buildings in-house, they're not contracting out the general, which is when those minority and women business-owned entities that were required to report to HUD. I don't know if Dani has any other additions to that.
I do have a follow-up question, Brad, before you move off that. Ron Gacious, AHAB Chair. So this document would not reflect any subcontractors that are participating? This would be general contractors only?
This is Brad Carr, Community Development Analyst. Dani, I'm not for sure. I haven't entered the numbers into that report before. Is that just for generals or subs included?
That would be, sorry, Dani Walters, Community Development. That would be just for generals. But we can certainly start requesting that information for subcontractors that are hired as well. I think Rebecca has.
Yes, Rebecca?
As one of the few affordable housing developers, yes, we do it in-house. So we only use local contractors, which I think is really important to talk about here. And that we request and give priority to minority and women-owned businesses. There are not very many in construction in Lawrence, Kansas, but we will give them priority, and I can speak to we do. They're just, yes, I think we need to look at our perspective on this, that there are not any women-owned excavating concrete pouring firms in Lawrence, Kansas. So if we want to make that a priority, we would then have to hire outside of Kansas City or other areas. And to me, our community wants us to keep money locally. Obviously, there just aren't very many women-owned or BIPOC-owned local construction businesses, to be honest. Our landscapers are minority-owned. We have 3 or 4 minority-owned subcontractors that we always use. So I would also say that report, doesn't talk about subcontractors, as well as nonprofits that go only local and are led by, Erica and I are led by women-owned. We're not a woman-owned business because we're a nonprofit, but we are a woman-led nonprofit that gives priority to minority-owned businesses. So I think we need to be careful about how we interpret that data. I feel like Tenants to Homeowners and Habitat do a very good job at really looking at local and making sure we're giving everyone a chance that is a smaller subcontractor, other than a big Kansas City firm that is not going to do that locally.
This is Dani Walters. I think that what Rebecca brings up is a really important point that would probably be very fitting to put in a narrative with this, just because, I completely understand where the question came from, because everything is a 0 on here. But the reality is that we do have some things that we could report on it. So I think that maybe having that in the narrative next year is important.
Thank you, Dani. And Ron Gacious, AHAB Chair. And Rebecca, I don't want anyone to be misled by my line of inquiry here. I'm not interested in seeing us reach outside of our community to bring in outside contractors either. What I would love to see us do as a community, and I don't believe this is a responsibility of this advisory board other than maybe just to provide encouragement, but I would love to see for our community to proactively support the creation of minority and women-owned businesses of all types, but particularly in all of the building and supportive trades. I'm of the impression that we're underserved generally, and that, just as a community, we're underserved in those professions. And and hopefully there could be opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses to be encouraged and supported and developed in our community that could provide you and Erica and others working on these projects even more support from our BIPOC and women-led businesses. Other questions or comments by advisory board members?
I would say, this is Christina Gentry, community member, board member. I would say too, it also, to add to that, that comment that you just made right now, let's be intentional about the words that we use too. Maybe supplement minority for BIPOC. I think we understand what those letters mean, Black, Indigenous, people of color. So when we're talking about minorities, we are talking about Black and Indigenous and people of color that are residents of our community. So maybe we start with an intentional speaking and intentional words, because that feels to me like that's more of an invite and a opportunity for us to be intentional and reach out. So maybe we just supplement some words and some vocabulary when we're talking about our community members.
Christina, sometimes I am just dense as a brick, and I'm not certain how I should interpret your comment. Are you suggesting that one phrase or the other is more appropriate?
This is Christina Gentry. I'm saying let's be intentional. If we're asking for BIPOC members, BIPOC community members to engage with us with the work, I'm not saying us and, I'm not our board. I'm saying it's you just said, we need to encourage our community members, and you said minority. So if you're meaning minority, let's just say minority. If you're meaning BIPOC members, let's say that. So what I'm saying is just adding on to your conversation. I'm not trying to take away your words or trying to eliminate what you've established as your vernacular. I'm just saying let's be intentional. Let's use intentional words.
Certainly. Thank you. Thank you.
Ron, when I look around Lawrence, Kansas, I see people with different colors of background. Like I am a part of Section 8 voucher, and I got a Section 8 place, my own house. So I see lots of people with different colors, which I like. And when they live together, like in the same Section 8 housing, it makes you feel good about you and other people. But when they look at Section 8, they do Section 8 vouchers, and they come in and do the Section 8 places and make sure, but they couldn't do it this year because of the COVID-19. So they wanted to make sure everything is okay and safe. So I think when people that come that are new to Lawrence, we can offer places, or they can look into other organizations that can help them out, like Tenants to Homeowners or Section 8 or Independence Inc. or Tenants to Homeowners.
Thank you, Cole.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions regarding the report from advisory board members? Seeing none, do we need, we don't take any action on this report, is that correct, Dani?
This is Dani Walters. That is correct, yeah. I think just close out the public hearing at this point if there's no other comments. And
seeing no other comments, our public hearing on the 2019, let me get the correct title of this in front of me. Seeing no further comments, the public hearing on the City of Lawrence 2019 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report is closed. I'd like to go back quickly to the number 2 quick update on affordable housing administrator. Oh, from our affordable housing administrator on the 2020 NOFA timeline. What?
Jeff Craig, Planning and Development Services Director. I'd be happy to provide the update on the Affordable Housing Administrator position. That, just so everybody knows, is on our website, and we're currently recruiting for that position. So if you have anyone in mind, I'd like to share that information. It is available at our job website for florenceks.org. We're going to begin the reviews on that item on the 13th. And as far as the NOFA timeline, I'm hoping Brad can help me out, or Brad or Dani can help me out with that one, because I'm not sure I have that detail in front of me in whole here. But with that, we'll also be coming back to you, I believe, in December.
Yeah, this is Brad Carr, Community Development Analyst. We just included that timeline to show you kind of where we are, where you are in that process of the NOFA that was released. And so you would, as a board, had approved it on October the 12th. That application and NOFA associated documents. The City Commission went on to approve the release of that NOFA at their meeting on October 20th. And so we're currently in the receiving of application stage, and the applicants have until November 23rd to submit their applications to staff. And then the timeline just lays out how staff will assimilate those documents. Applicant presentations would be back to this board at the December 14th AHAB meeting. And then there'll be some more discussion. You'll score and make your recommendations at your January 11th, 2021 meeting. And then those recommendations would be sent on to the City Commission for review and approval at their February 2nd, 2021 meeting.
Thank you, Brad. Yes, Edith?
Edith Guthrie, member at large. I was wondering, Brad, can you tell me, was there any anything different in how the process was advertised in an attempt to maybe reach out to different populations for applications? Is there anything done differently this time?
This is Brad Carr, Community Development Analyst. I know we used, obviously, the city's social media and public releases that we'd used in the past, so there's no change there. It's also listed on, there's a nationwide company called Demand Star that all bids, RFPs, and NOFAs are listed on, and that was used in the past, so there's no change there. Dani might know. Dani, was it sent out to any other public listservs such as the United Way or?
Dani Walters, I believe that I did see that go through the United Way as well. So they have a very large listserv that goes to a lot of nonprofit agencies. So.
United Way has a lot of them, and so does Cottonwood. They offer like SIL, support of independent living places. They can help you find a place, and they can help you find a staff person. And if you can't live on your own, they can offer you some group homes. There's 2 other apartments, which one is Prairie Ridge or Clinton Place, and they have some good case managers there that can help you out.
Thank you.
Could I continue with another question?
Yes, please.
So I was sort of wondering about, and Christina, maybe you could answer this. You talked about the groups that you meet with that gave some input. Do you know whether they are aware or would have been aware, maybe even without you, about the NOFA process? It's those kinds of groups that I'm wondering if we need to have a different process of reaching.
Thank you. Yes, this is Christina Gentry, a citizen and board member. I do note that they were aware. I mean, there are groups who are aware of the application process and when and to submit. One of the social medias was called Demand Star. I'm not sure if that's an outlet that produces advertisements or applications, but yes, there is one, and that was one that wasn't mentioned. I'm just not And I just feel the way you do. Maybe the question you're asking is, how intentional is our reach? How are we focused on moving the opportunity to the groups that we're really wanting to engage? So that seems to be the overarching situation here in question here that I hear from you. But to answer that, quick answer is yes. The group that I just met with, LFK Housing, they are aware and they were aware and put in a little bit of information about this opportunity for the grant through the AHAB.
That is indeed what I'm asking. And they were aware, and I wonder would they have been aware if you had not been there? And so I'm wondering, are there other places that we may be missing? And you're right, Christina, that's the bigger question I'm asking.
This is Christina. Yes, they were aware without my information or without my input.
Thank you, ladies. No other comments on our quick update items? Seeing none, we'll move to other new business. Item 1, board member reappointments are due by the end of the year. If you'd like to be reappointed, I believe we have myself and I think 3 other members. I had that list in front of me last week, and I apologize, I don't see it right now. We've got myself and I think 3 or 4 other board members. Our terms are up at the end of this calendar year. If you're interested in being reappointed, please go to the iCompass portal and fill out an advisory board application. The application can also be found on the homepage of the portal under the volunteer vacancies tile, or from any board page by clicking on the apply button.
Mr. Chair, this is Brad Carr, Community Development Analyst. I can go through the board members that are up for reappointment if you'd like. There's a total of 5 that their terms end December 31st of this year, and that would be Edith Guffey, Shannon Oury, Erica Zimmerman, Dana Ortiz, and Ron Gacious. All of you are eligible for reappointment. The terms that you had previously served were not complete terms. Each board member can serve 2 complete 3-year terms. And so none of you have reached that yet. So you are all eligible to reapply. The city has a new software system, and so that's why there's now an application process online, and that's the iCompass portal. And so they're asking all board members that would like to be reappointed to go through that application process in that online portal. It'll recognize, obviously, when you submit it, that you're a current member asking for a reappointment. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Ron Gacious, AHAB Chair, are there any questions for Brad? And yes, go right ahead, Dana.
Trying to take myself off mute. Brad, I did have a question. In previous meetings, we discussed the term limit, and you indicated all of the 5 had not served their full term because of partials and such. But I know we've had this discussion before because several of us have been on since the beginning, not just since the sales tax took place. So what happened to that discussion? Because I thought this was going to be our last year and we had to have those conversations.
Yeah, this is Brad Carter, analyst. There were some obviously changes from the original 2015 when the board started. And the number of members that were on the board at that time, in order to not have a turnover of more than a certain percentage of the number of board members, they staggered people's terms from that start. And so that affected those of you that have been around since the first. Then there was a change to the makeup of the board where additional members were added. And so once again, to avoid that percentage changeover, we had to change in the bylaws and possibly even the ordinance the number of the terms of the staggering for certain members as they join the board. And so it's changed multiple times, and it's tough for me to keep up with it. Also, I'm relying a lot on the city manager's office to keep a little bit better records since they handle all the board appointments. And I don't know if Diane has any other comments on how those appointments work and how those staggered terms went.
Diane Stoddard, Assistant City Manager. I think, Brad, you summarized it well. I think it's just a matter of how the city ultimately defined each full term in given these changes that Brad had indicated.
This is Ron Gacious, AHAB Chair. I'd like to take the opportunity, since we're on this topic, to revisit Patrick Wilbur's comment about the makeup of the board and ask AHAB members, would you like to have a future agenda item where we discuss the makeup and size of the board? If you're interested in having that discussion, can I see a thumbs up from people? Hands, thumbs. We got 3, 4, 5. Very good. Let's recognizing that we've got some pretty significant let's see, our December meeting will be filled with applicant presentations. And our January meeting will be spent discussing those recommendations. It's pushing it out a bit, but let's cue this up for our February agenda. Diane, does that sound fine? I see a little head nod. Yeah, okay. Very good, thank you. Next item under other new business is source of income discrimination and information from other communities. And Shannon, I know that you had wanted to ensure that we revisited this issue, got touched on briefly earlier in the year. Would you like to make any comments to introduce this topic?
Well, so this is a topic that is a common discussion for housing authorities around the country. And I know since we had an interest in, and this was new information that came out, so I forwarded it so people can, really kind of see what other jurisdictions are doing. I think before we spend very much time on it, we would want to seek from the legal department at the city as to whether we could even do something because of the statute that was enacted maybe 5 years ago that really has precluded jurisdictions from doing inclusive zoning and some of those things. I have read that statute and I have some doubts as to whether we could tell within the state of Kansas as to whether we could have something like this. And specifically, I believe we are precluded from telling someone what they can charge for rent, which in order to avoid, basically, and so, that's really my question is before we spend a whole lot of time on this, I do think we would want to get a legal opinion as to whether it's worth our discussion and whether we could ever even do something like that.
Ron Gacious, AHAB Chair. Diane, could we cue that issue up to the city's legal department and get some input from them on what they think our parameters might be or the scope of the city's authority might be in this area?
Yes, Diane Stoddard, Assistant City Manager. Yes, Mr. Chair, I think that that's something that we could get some guidance on them about and bring it back to the board and see if you want to have any further discussions based on that direction.
Okay, Ron Gacious, AHAB Chair, thank you. And I encourage each of you that maybe hasn't had an opportunity to do it yet, the Inlivian Housing Redefined issue brief by Fulton Meacham was, was very timely, May of 2020, and extremely well written and persuasive in advocating for action in this area, in my view. It's be interesting to know what our legal authorities might be in this space. Any other questions or comments regarding the source of income discrimination topic? Seeing none, we'll move on to our calendar. November 14th, we have NOFA applicant presentations. Reminder also, in January, we will be electing a new board chair and vice chair and discussing our NOFA funding recommendations. And the following meeting will be on February 8th. Are there any other comments or questions from the advisory board before we adjourn today's meeting?
The only thing that I would add is that this board recommended funding for Burt Nash's transition house, and that ribbon cutting will be on the 20th of November. It's a limited invite usually, but they are Facebooking live those ceremonies. But we are about to have another 14-bed project for special populations come online.
And that is excellent news. And with that exciting news, oh yes, Monty, I'm sorry, go right ahead. You're on mute.
Ron, the article you referenced, could you provide that resource so that, because I did not catch that, at a later time to the board somehow through the city or something?
Oh, the Inlivian Housing Redefined?
Yes.
Resource. If you click on the blue link under source of income discrimination.
Oh, it's in there?
Yeah, it's in there, or or there's a link in there that takes you to this separate document.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And Shannon had sourced that for us and forwarded it along. It's a quick and very good read.
Ron, this is Cole.
Yes, sir.
I showed some interest in running for vice chair. I've got some lot of good experiences, like being on the vice and vice president. So working with the next board chair, and I showed some interest in running as a vice chair to learn.
Very good, sir. Thank you very much for letting us know. And we've got the December and January meeting before we'll be having those elections from here in the board. So thank you very much for identifying your interest. Seeing no other hands from advisory board members, I'll declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much. Bye now.